Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the rise of social media and search metrics and what it means for Andrew Yang and what it means for political participants and even what it means for non-political participants. All right, so let's define what we're talking about first. So first and foremost, there is a fundamental change in America today in politics, and it impacts, of course. By the way, everything that impacts politics impacts culture and society. That's why I'm so interested in politics. Is if it's impacting politics, it's impacting culture and it's impacting society. I'm often just absolutely shocked how uninterested people are at the macro level about politics because it impacts them so deeply, right? And most people just don't care, right? I think a lot of people are just kind of floating down the river, which I just don't understand that. But hey, that's where we're at. All right. Let's talk about social media and search metrics, right? So which ones matter, right? Which social media and which search metrics matter, and what's happening with them? Okay, so one, here's the social media sites. Let's talk about search first. Google's the only company in the game. Nobody cares about if you got searched on DuckDuckGo or some nonsense, or Bing, or some nonsense search engine, right? Google's all that matters. But how many people Google searched you after any kind of XYZ event, usually the debates, is now a major metric. It is being reported internationally. It's being reported by major, very real news sources. It matters, right? And it's incredibly important, right? So Google's in a bracket all to themselves. Their searches are incredibly important, and it is a new metric that matters, right? What are the social networks that use this? By the way, I'm on every single one of these, right? Because I understand their importance, right? And I have a presence on every single one of it, and I have for years, right? Facebook, it's hugely important, even in the political scheme. How many Facebook followers, your ability to talk to millions of Facebook followers at the same time, it's important. Twitter is the number one social media in politics. It matters more than your Twitter followers. And by the way, most of the people are on Facebook. The smartest people are on Twitter, period. All right? There's a few others that really matter as well. A lot of people don't get this. Reddit is Facebook for mean antisocial people, right? It shouldn't matter, but it does. Boy, does it, man. Reddit really matters. Don't sleep on Reddit. It's not going anywhere. People want to ignore it. It's just not going anywhere, right? And the reality is that metric, it matters less, and only a few people talk about Reddit. But all these social media platforms really are very, very important. Instagram. Right? Instagram, it's the young people's platform. They really love it. It's a non-verbal platform. It's a completely visual platform. It's powerful, right? And there's a lot of power in metrics around Instagram. And the last one is Pinterest. Pinterest is really not on anybody's radar. It's on my radar, right? It just IPO'd this year, right? And it's important. And I think quite a few candidates have figured out that Pinterest matters. The media really isn't hip to Pinterest yet, but I think that one's on the rise. So that's it. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's Reddit, and it's Pinterest. Those are the social media sites that matter, okay? All right. The fact that those metrics are part of how we measure candidates today is a fundamental change. And it means that everybody has to look at that fact and then take actions based on that fact, right? So specifically, who has to pay attention to this, right? Well, first and foremost, Yang has to pay attention to this, right? And the reason why is, we all understand. If you're listening to this channel, there's a good chance you understand this. If you don't, recognize Andrew Yang is on a rocket train to be the next president of this United States of America. That is a fact, right? That's coming quickly, all right? Now, and he is first and foremost in my mind, and I'll talk about what his action should be. But there's others, okay? So one, what do voters do with this new fact? How do they process it? What actions do they take connected to it? What do the other candidates beyond Yang? How should they process this, right? What about companies, right? What about American companies? What do they do with this, right? Here's another one. What do internationals do? it's a touchy subject for most Americans because they're like, this is our election. What's the rest of the world care about this? More and more, we really need to have a lot of sympathy for internationals and realize that the idea that the election of the American president is a U.S. concern, it absolutely is a U.S. concern, but the idea that it's not an international concern is ludicrous. The job really is king or queen of the world. You've got to understand that to understand the use of this presidency. And it makes a lot of sense that internationals are interested in our election. And I will tell you right now, I am convinced that if you took I think every continent on the planet has more people interested in the U.S. election than the U.S., right? It is amazing to me how many people respond to my videos who are internationals, and they realize that who we elect as a president massively impacts them, right? So we're going to talk about internationals. And last is non-voters, non-participants in the political process, because the rise of these social media metrics and the rise of these social media and search metrics really means a lot for them. All right, so what should Andrew Yang do, right? Considering the rise of these social media and search metrics, right? Well, he should read it as a certifier, okay? It is a certificate for him to tell him he is awesome and doing everything right? What? Wait, you're like, wait, what? Andrew Yang doesn't need to do anything here? No, he doesn't. He's crushing it, right? He's a tech entrepreneur, right? He made his bones in companies that made a lot of money on tech, and then he stood up, and then he used tech principles to run a nonprofit, right? And the reality is, Andrew Yang has absolutely masterful use of every single one of these platforms, of these social media platforms, and he's doing everything he needs to do to get into the Google search engines, right? And the reason why is he gets this. It's in his blood, right? It's one of the reasons why I love him as a candidate, right? But the one thing is he should take a victory lap here and also use the rise of these social media and these search metrics to say, I was right all along. I knew the power of technology, and I'm the best person to be president of America because I'm going to be America's first actually tech-savvy president, right? And he should take that encouragement and take this as a certifier and breathe a sigh of relief and realize that he doesn't need to do anything here, right? But that's not a small thing. I'll tell you right now, whenever you're doing something, when you're working on something, when you're trying to build something, right? So right now, I'm very fortunate. My channel has been doing better than ever, right? With the recent changes I've made it, and I'm really pushing to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm doing what I can to make this channel better, right? And there are significant restrictions within my life that makes that challenging at times, right? But the reality is, one of the things that drives this channel is every now and then, once a week, twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, there'll be some subscriber who comes on and just says, "Hey, Scott, I really get what you're doing. I love these videos. Thank you so much." And that encouragement is rocket fuel to me, man. It is so helpful. And I think, Andrew Yang needs to really, there's so much stress on him right now, so much pressure coming down, and just realizing there's one area where he's crushing it and where he doesn't have to change a thing, I think would really be helpful for him. And I think that's what he needs to do, right? What should voters do based on the rise of social media and search metrics? Quite a few. One, every voter in America, you need to realize, not only should you be, so this is important, you ignore social media at your peril. It is basic equipment for modern life now. And if you're a voter, you absolutely should be on every social media metric, every social media platform I just talked about. You should be on Facebook, you should be on Instagram, you should be on Reddit, you should be on Pinterest, and you should be on Twitter. All of them. They're all important. And if you want to understand what's happening in America, you need to be there and see how people are living, what matters to them, so that, one, you can actually be informed for your own vote, so you know what Americans need, and then also so you're ready to convince other voters to vote the way you want, right? And if you're listening to this channel, right, you're an influencer, right? And you're going to be able to influence others through social media. It's incredibly important, right? And so if you're a voter, you ignore these platforms at your absolute peril. Also, it goes way beyond just your politics, right? I know this for a fact. There's been a lot of articles that are starting to talk about this. And the reality is, increasingly, like, you're going to have banks checking your Facebook page to determine if you're going to get a loan. That's coming, right? Recognize, right? And that's the point. And like, also, if you go to get a job and you have, zero social media presence, that is catastrophic. Like, they're going to say, what's up with you? Are you Amish? You're not Amish? Well, then we don't need to hire you because you have no good reason to have zero social media presence, right? This is it is basic equipment for life. So you've got to get on it and you view it. And then the last is get on these platforms and dominate for your candidate. For us, it's Andrew Yang. We need to be putting up, Andrew Yang memes. We need to be encouraging others on Facebook. We need to be engaged in civil discourse on Twitter. We need to dive into that cesspool that is Reddit and talk to those antisocial mean people and try to get them to vote the way we want, right? All these things are incredible. and even on Instagram, right? We need to, just put up a nice picture and hit it with a nice, Yang 2020 sticker, right? It's important. Like, we got to get on these things and we've got to dominate them. That's what voters need to do, right? What about candidates? What should the other candidates do? How should they process the rise of social media, and search, right? Well, one, I think every other candidate, the majority of the other candidates, not every single one, most of the other candidates should really read this as a lever signal, right? Basically, if you're not trending well on social media, if you don't understand social media, you got no business being in this election, right? I'm looking at you, Bennett. Yeah, I really feel like Bennett's just taking oxygen out of the room. That really, he's such a duplicative candidate. There's just no way that this guy's going to, be president of America. And right now, people are trying to figure out who should be, right? And I just feel like he's in the way. I feel like he does not understand social media at even the most remote level, right? And I'm not sure he would even know what each one of those 5 are, right? So if you are a candidate and you can't tell, if you could not tell people what every single one of those 5 platforms are, what Facebook is, what Pinterest is, what Reddit is, what Twitter is, what Instagram is, if you would have to hesitate to explain what any of those are, you should leave this election. Like, you should stop wasting bandwidth for the Democrat Party and for voters and get out, right? Because you just don't understand apps. You just don't understand regular life. Now, I don't think that's going to capture everybody. Like, Kamala Harris would be fine. I think Tulsi Gabbard would be fine. I even think Tim Ryan probably knows enough, to stay in there. Klobuchar, she'd be fine. But Bennett, honestly, Biden, I don't think he knows what Reddit is. It's just like the idea that a 77-year-old person is going to have their finger on the pulse of what America is right now and bring forward innovative solutions for the youth. He's 11 years past, 76. He's 11 years past the age of retirement. It's too much, right? I really feel strongly about this, right? All right, what about companies? What should companies be doing, right? Well, every company in America it should recognize right now the rise of social media and search metrics means that your company has got to be firing on all platforms, and you need to lace every service and every product you create onto these platforms. They are the future, right? They are replacing traditional advertising. They are replacing traditional engagement. They are replacing traditional recruitment, right? Every company in America needs to understand that the rise of social media and search metrics for companies, it means that every product and service they create has to be seamlessly stitched together into all 5 of these platforms. It's incredibly important. What should internationals do? This is an unusual one. This is a really, really unusual one, right? All right. If you're an international and you are deeply, deeply interested in American politics, right, I think you should be using these 5 platforms for the following reason. America is an expansionist nation, right? This has got us into a lot of problems in the past, right? But right now, I really think we need to be expanding in two directions. We need to be expanding in three directions. We need to be expansionist in space, Moon and Mars. No casualties there, right? We're not displacing anybody. It's not like when we took land from Native Americans. By the way, I am Native American, come from the Mattaponi tribe, right? So my grandmother's home is 50 feet off the reservation, right? So yeah, I'm very Native American. All right. So basically, we need to be expansionist in outer space. We need to be expansionist in the seas, right? But America needs its 51st state. We truly need our 51st state. We need to start expanding peacefully by offering 51st statehood to another country, saying your country is no longer your country, it's now the 51st state. So I think that international should begin using if you're highly involved in American politics, you should really start using these platforms to ask for the permission to be America's 51st state, transitioning your country from being an independent country to being the 51st state of America. It's important, and I think it's really, and I really think it's a needed step. All right. Last is non-voters. Let's talk about non-voters. We really haven't talked about this much in the past, but I think it's important. All right, so one, I absolutely realize that voter suppression is happening. It happens in three ways, okay? One, I think there's genuine voter suppression, right? Really, like, devious, like, mustache-twirling villainy where, like, people are suppressing voters. I think this is about 5 to 10% of the problem, right? And we need to recognize it, and we need to stop it, right? I think there's a lot of groups that are doing that now, right? The next part of voter suppression is completely legal, and it's a much murkier area, and that's gerrymandering, right? I actually support gerrymandering. I think gerrymandering is a political game that is played, and frankly, if you're getting beat in gerrymander, just get good, right? Like, get good at gerrymandering. And frankly, just to be clear, if everybody's not aware of it, both Democrats and Republicans gerrymander, right? So frankly, if the gerrymandering is going back and forth, it comes to a net zero, right? Unless one party is better than the other, right? So gerrymandering is not illegal. I'm perfectly fine with somebody trying to make it illegal through the law. Fine, have at it. I don't think you're going to be able to do it, but go to town, right? But the reality is, while it's legal, get good at it, right? So that is an area of voter suppression. It's a complicated one because the parties can turn the dials on that by simply getting good at political craft, right? That's a very complicated one. The last voter suppression is the law. And by the way, I think gerrymandering is like another 30% of the problem. So you got 10% is real, villainous, it's a voter suppression. That should be fully stopped. Gerrymandering, that's tricky. I think the best solution is the parties need to get good at it. And the last is voter, and this is the real kicker. I think 60% of all voter suppression is fully personal voter suppression. People going, politics bore me, I'm not going to vote. People going, I don't like those two candidates, I'm not going to vote. People going, I'm never going to get what I want, I'm not going to vote. People going, I got 15 parking tickets, I don't want to get my name on the grid, I'm not going to vote, right? There is a ton of that. There's a ton of that, right? There are people who don't want to deal with being on the grid and getting on lists. And guess what? When you register for something, yeah, you're going to get on some lists, right? So a lot of people are like, oh no, I don't want to be on the grid. I don't want to be on the government's, any government's list. I'm not voting. It's powerful. A ton of people do this, right? And the reality is, so I think a lot of voter suppression is self-voter suppression. I think it's the largest area, right? Here's my take. Because of the rise of social media and search metrics, if you are a non-voter, you do not matter as much as you should, right? So look at your life, see what is stopping you from being a voter, and change it, right? And the reality, and call out for help, right? If there is something that's stopping you from voting, call out to the DNC, call out to the RNC, even touch base with me, right? Like, and I'll try to connect you to somebody who can help. Whatever it is, whether you are being villainously suppressed, whether you're being suppressed through gerrymandering, whether you are suppressing yourself, right? determine what is the obstacle to you voting and change your life to the point where you can vote. Because right now, I think it is incredibly dangerous to not be a voter. It really is, because you will not be represented. Okay, that's it. That is, the rise of social media and search metrics. What everyone should do, Yang first and foremost, right? And the reasons they should do it. All that is my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below, please. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.